Let us say I came to water like since I was a kid. It was always my preferred playground. When I came to Auroville, I came with 8 kilos of spanners, pliers, screwdrivers in my bag and few clothes. But that was basically my luggage when I came here. So very rapidly the word spread that a mechanic had joined. I was called on assignments, you know, like Oreca, that was still toujours mieux, then Aurogarage, then Abri. And when I joined Abri, I was at that time repairing mopeds and motorbikes, mechanic. But I was terribly frustrated. Somewhere inside me, I knew it was not the job, you know. And we started the Auroville Water Service like that, you know, just a bunch of people. And we worked on windmills, on pumps, and all what had to do with water. Later we started looking after the drilling of bore wells. I took the opportunity to do a big training on wastewater. Each time it was expanding this experience of the Auroville Water Service. What started, you know, by windmills and fiddling with the pumps became more and more structured. And so there was a kind of concentration of skills, of people dedicated and who really wanted to expand, to develop. And what was very, very important was the aspect of municipal service, municipal in brackets, but I mean we have this collective dimension. And for us it was very important. It was not a business, it was not a unit, it was not this type of thing. And then that's how harvest came. You know, we immediately, okay, what is to be done? We have to repair the yeris, no, the tanks all around the place. And so what do we need? We need excavators, we need trucks, we need machinery, we need engineers, we need people. And then we just went on the job, you know. And later, I mean, in 2-3 years, we had 15 engineers, we had 2 excavators, and we were running a show with a turnover of 2 crores per year. It was huge, and it was very performant. I mean, we were known up to Delhi, so it was a very good tool for Auroville.
I'm working with a water group, and I have been since January of 2017, and I'm helping with our communications around water. And then I'm also working with L'avenir as a water coordinator. I'm also an active participant in the Water Users Association of the residential zone for the sewage treatment plant here. In my tray where I live, I kind of help with the water things. So like when it rains, I put out a little WhatsApp of how much it rained, and I look at the water bills and make sure that there aren't any abnormalities like leakages and things, and try to maintain the taps, and I try there. So that's kind of my overall work in water.
The Institute is a research and training center in earth architecture. We use mostly earth as a raw earth or stabilized earth, so it means stabilized with a little cement or lime to have it more durable with water. We try to reduce maximum use of cement, even of lime, minimum use of steel and other industrial products to use maximum the earth. And doing what we call compressed stabilizers blocks consumes water. For example, to do one block of 24 by 24, that means this size by 9 centimeters thickness, will require about 8 liters of water. And these are not small amounts. So first, I would say I'm very concerned with water on many aspects, but especially on the aspect of architecture and construction sites. I always try that we use a minimum amount of water for the use of the construction site. That's why now, for example, we start for the first time to record how much we consume. Because even if you ask workers, be careful of this, be careful of that, we don't have any data of how much water goes into a building. That means we have some theoretical calculations because we know more or less how much cubic meter of water goes into a cubic meter of concrete, or for example, but if you don't have particle data for what is really used on site, you cannot really know what we are doing. But before, my main interest was for the rainwater harvesting. So how we can control all the rainwater which falls on the roof? So it means harvest it either directly into rainwater tanks if you have money to build a rainwater tank, or if you don't have, how we can send it to the ground and harvest it into percolation pits. From what they say is that we have now to harvest rainwater not only in percolation pits, because water will percolate into the ground, it will recharge the water table, but the problem is the bioregion, because the bioregion consumes a lot of water. That means whatever we can save from Auroville with the rainwater harvesting into percolation pits to recharge the table, this water will be used by the villagers at the end. That means if you want to use water for ourselves, we have to create water tanks, which will be closed water tanks, in which we can harvest about 80% of the rainfall coming from the roof, and then which can be used for domestic purpose, like wastewater for the toilet, because this water which is harvested from the roofs has to be treated. You cannot drink it like this, because you have a lot of pollution which accumulates with the dust on the roofs with the pollution of the air. Then you have the dust from the nature also. That means you have to treat this water before you drink it.
இங்கே வந்த பொழுது தண்ணீர் பற்றாக்குறை ரொம்ப அதிகமாக இருந்தது. ஆனால் எப்போ மழை பெய்தாலும் அழகாக இருக்கும். இது வானம் பார்த்த பூமி, நெய்தல் பூமி, வண்ணமுத்து மாரியம்மன், தேசமுத்து மாரியம்மன், செங்கழுநீர் மாரியம்மன், அப்புறம் மேற்காத்து ஆத்தாள், பொன்னியம்மன், கங்கையம்மன், இப்படி நீர் சார்ந்த இறைவியரைத்தான் தாயைத்தான் கும்பிட்டுட்டு இருந்தாங்க. இடையஞ்சாவடியில் வர்ணமுத்து மாரியம்மன், மாரி என்றால் மழை. ஸோ மழையை கும்பிடும் மக்கள், மழையை தாயாக கும்பிடும் மக்கள், தண்ணீரை தங்களுடைய தெய்வமாக வணங்குகிற மக்கள் இருக்கிற ஊரில் தண்ணி பஞ்சம். அதுக்காகவே ஆரோவில்ல தமிழ் நிதி, தமிழ் ஃபண்ட் ஃபார் ரூரல் டெவலப்மெண்ட் இருந்தது. அதனுடைய இயக்குனராக நான் இருந்த பொழுது அப்போது எப்படி நான் சுற்றி பார்க்குறேன். ஏனென்றால் எந்த காலத்தில் மழை பெய்தாலும் அதை அடிச்சுட்டு போயிடுதே தவிர, மேல் மண்ணாக கடலில் போய் கலந்துடுதே தவிர, அதை நிறுத்தி வச்சு உள்ளூரில் அந்த மழை நீரை சேகரிக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு அறிவு அல்லது வளம் அவங்களுக்கு இல்லாமல் இருந்தது. எனக்கு இது ரொம்ப ஆச்சரியம். ஏன்னாக்க தமிழர்கள் நீர் மேலாண்மையில் மிகச்சிறந்தவர்கள். சோழர்கள் கட்டாத கல்லணையா, காவேரியில் அதிகமாக நீர் வந்தால் அதை மடை திருப்பி கொள்ளிடமாக ஒரு ஆறாகவே எடுத்துக்கொண்டு வந்தவங்க. அதனால் எப்படி பாண்டியர்களுடைய கிணறுகள், சோழர்களுடைய நீர் மேலாண்மை, ஒவ்வொரு ஊர்லேயும் எண் பேராயம், ஐம்பெருங்குழுன்னு போட்ட மாதிரி மல்லர்கள், மடையர்கள், பல்லர்கள்னு அந்தந்த இயற்கை தண்ணீர் சார்ந்த வேலைகளுக்கு மக்களை நியமித்து ரொம்ப அழகான ஒரு நீர் மேலாண்மை பண்ணின தேசம் இப்படி ஆயிடுச்சு, இந்த ஊர் இப்படி ஆயிடுச்சு. அப்போது எனக்கு என்ன தோணுச்சுன்னா, நிச்சயமாக இவர்களுக்கு ஒரு தலைமை பயிற்சி தரணும். அப்போது நான் வேலை செய்த அந்த தமிழ் நிதி மூலமாக ஒவ்வொரு கிராமத்து இளைஞரும் வந்து பங்கு பெறுற மாதிரி இளைஞர்களுக்கு, பள்ளி மாணவர்களுக்கு, ஆசிரியர்களுக்கு, பெண்களுக்கு, அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் பஞ்சாயத்து தலைவர்களுக்கு எல்லாரையும் 3 நாள் என்னோடு இருக்கணும், பேசணும், விளையாடணும், சிரிக்கணும். அவங்கவுங்க லட்சிய கிராமம் எப்படி இருக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிறத அவங்கள சிந்திக்க வைக்கிற பொழுது எல்லோரும் சொன்னது எங்கள் ஊருக்கு தண்ணி வேணும். நீங்கள் நம்ப மாட்டீங்க, ஒரு 1980 போல் இருக்கும், ஒரு பெரிய மழை. அந்த மழையில் குயிலப்பாளையத்தில் 40 குடிசைகள் அழிஞ்சிட்டு போகிற மாதிரி அந்த குளம் பெருகி வெள்ளம். அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் நாங்கள் தண்ணீரை நல்ல நிர்வாகம் பண்ணுறதுக்காக ஒரு கல்வெட், ஒரு கல்லணை எங்கே கட்டியிருக்கோம். இன்றைக்கும் பார்க்கலாம். அந்த கோவிலுக்கு முன்னாடி அந்த சாலையிலேருந்து கிராமம் குயிலப்பாளையம் குளம் ஆரம்பிக்கிற இடத்துல இன்றைக்கும் ஒரு தடுப்பு கல்லணை இருக்கும். அது ஜாஸ், பிச்சாண்டிக்குளம் ஜாஸ் உறுதுணையாக இருக்க நம்ம தமிழ் நிதி மூலமாக கட்டினோம். அதனால் இங்கே நீர் மேலாண்மை பற்றி கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக எல்லாருக்கும் நம்ம சொல்லித்தர வேண்டியது. பெண்களுடைய பாடு, தண்ணீர் சுமந்து வரும் பாடு அதிகமாக இருந்ததுனால ஊருக்குள்ளேயே குழாய்கள் நிறுவி எல்லாரும் வந்து எடுத்துக்கிற மாதிரி இடையஞ்சாவடி, குயிலப்பாளையம் எல்லாம் செய்தோம்.
So we don't work with water right now, but we want to. We develop education programs on waste. And I think what we're always looking for in education programs is something that fulfills a need. So whether we're teaching something that's really relevant to students and their lives in the future, and I think education on water is really needed, especially in our region. And I think we're also looking for something that has a measurable social impact, something we can measure. We can't measure plastic as easily as water consumption. So there, it would be definitely easier to do something on water. And also something that has a direct impact on their lives. And I think packaging and plastics and waste doesn't have as direct an impact on your life as water because you pay for water. So yeah, we're really interested in working with water, and we're also currently working on a project on marine plastic pollution.
This is one of the main problems that I see in Auroville for the construction sites, and to harvest rainwater into proper tanks, is to have funds for these rainwater tanks. Because people, they don't have money enough in general for this. But the challenge is more with the awareness of the workers and the cares of the workers. Because ourselves we are quite careful, but we release this to the workers, and we have a good team of workers who are working with us for some of them more than 28 years. So they work well, they are conscious of a lot of things, and water is the next step for them to be more aware of it and to control what they do.
மக்களுடைய ஒரு பேராசை காரணமாக பொது குழாய்களுக்கு தண்ணீர் வந்து சேர்றதுக்கு முன்னாடியே அவங்கவுங்க வீட்டுக்கு தனித்தனியாக இழுத்துட்டுருவாங்க. அவங்க வீட்டு தொட்டியை நிரப்பிப்பாங்க, அவங்க வீட்டு மாடு கண்ணு குளிப்பாட்டுவாங்க, அவங்க வீட்டு வாழை மரத்துக்கு தண்ணி ஊற்றுவாங்க. அப்புறம் ஊர் கடைசியில் இருக்கிற மக்களுக்கு அந்த தெருவுக்கு தண்ணி போகாது. இது என்ன மாதிரி சமூக சேவகர்களுக்கு இது கொஞ்சம் கடுமையான வேலையாக இருந்தது.
So getting people to work full time for 2 years on an issue, on a project, at least 2 years, that's one of our big challenges. The other challenge, which is kind of silly because we've always managed to get funding, but it's the security of funding. And I think as you're trying to build up a team, you need to know that once a project ends, you can continue supporting those team members that have joined. Oh, and another thing I really would like to see in the water situation is water meters everywhere. Because I think we're doing something now where we don't really have the measurement tools. So we don't really know how much water we're using in my own house. Like, we're now discussing how to pay for water in our community, and we're measuring it based on tank filling time. That didn't make sense because the voltage changes or the height of the tanks are different. And so we don't have a measurement tool that's accurate across all users.
When I thought about this, I see three main challenges. The first is a lack of connection that we have to our water. So it's very easy to turn on a tap and the water flows, and then it goes to somewhere, and we don't know oftentimes where it's coming from or where it goes. There's just a real disconnect between ourselves and our water sources. So that's a major challenge, and that I think bringing that connection forward would help us tremendously in caring about our water, right? So that's challenge number one, lack of connection. The second challenge would be, I feel there's a strong lack of participation and diversity in that participation around our water. The third challenge, what I perceive as a lack of harmony between the water players themselves, and that's really challenging. There's a lack of collaboration and a lack of people willing to work together or able to work together. And sometimes that can be really disheartening. There's many challenges, technical challenges, but from my perspective, in my work, what I see are these human challenges, and I ultimately think it comes back to that, because if we can work together as humans, we can work to overcome the challenges.
Then I coined out this label of BHF, which is the bloody human factor. So in the beginning, people laughed at this type of thing, and I like, a bit of humor, it's always good. But now that I see that this bloody BHF is still there and still developing and still one feels, hey, there is a very serious issue there, And the problems we face, the challenges, like disharmony and above all, dishonesty.
ஆரோவில்லினுடைய வளர்ச்சி என்பதை என்னால் தனித்து பார்க்க முடியாது. ஆரோவில்ல வந்து தன்னிறைவு பெறணும்னா சுற்றி இருக்கிற கிராமங்கள்லேயும் ஒவ்வொருத்தரும் கண்டிப்பாக ஒவ்வொரு வீட்டிலையும் குடிக்கிறதுக்கு நல்ல தண்ணீரும், அதே மாதிரி ஒவ்வொரு பள்ளிக்கூடத்துலேயும் அத்தனை குழந்தைகளுக்கும் நல்ல நீரும், அதே மாதிரி ஊர் மக்களுடைய எஞ்சி இருக்கிற விவசாயம் நடத்துறதுக்கு தேவையான நீரும் நம்ம கண்டிப்பாக கொண்டு வந்தாகணும். எப்படி நமக்கு ஆரோவில்லுக்கு ஒரு மாஸ்டர் பிளான் இருக்கோ அது மாதிரி கோட்டைக்கரைக்கு, இடையஞ்சாவடிக்கு, குயிலப்பாளையத்துக்கெல்லாம் மாஸ்டர் பிளான் இருக்கா? இல்லை. அப்போ அவங்க வந்து எப்படி பெரிதாக போகிறாங்க, அவங்களுடைய தண்ணீர் தேவை எப்படி இருக்கும், அந்த எவ்வளவு பூமி இருக்குது, இன்னும் எவ்வளோ விவசாயம் செய்ய போகிறோம், செய்ய முடியலன்னா எப்படி உணவு உற்பத்தி செய்ய போகிறோம், எப்படி தொழில்களை நடத்த போகிறோம் அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கு அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு மாஸ்டர் பிளான் கண்டிப்பாக வேணும். ஒவ்வொரு கிராமமும் ஒரு பஞ்சாயத்துக்குள்ளே வருது. ஆரோவில் தன்னுடைய டவுன்ஷிப் தன்னுடைய நிர்வாகத்துக்கு வருது. இது எல்லாத்தையும் இணைச்சி ஒரு மகா பஞ்சாயத்து, நம்ம ஒரு மகா பஞ்சாயத்து செய்தாகணும்.
I'm involved in a lot of these different groups, and I would just like to see more diversity, more inputs, more backgrounds, more different angles, more integral, more full in the search on the challenges, but also the search for solutions. I see a real potential for culture makers, for artists, for filmmakers, for poets, to build celebration and beauty around our water, around our seasons, around our sources. Like physically, when there's a well, that should be honored. And that might sound a little froofy, but I actually feel that if we recognize where our water comes from physically, that'll help us connect. Around diversity and getting more people involved, I think there are instances of this happening. So water users associations coming up in Centerfield, in the residential zone, more people getting involved at a really local sort of community level around their water. That would be wonderful, and that can happen now, and then that can move into a vision of a water governance system where people feel that they have a direct interaction in the decision making of their water.
The ideal scenario is basically water free for everybody.
I think the dream for me would be that children or anyone who uses water has a higher consciousness with its use. And with that I mean you conserve using it, you reduce waste, and whatever of this precious resource we have, we're trying to cycle back as many times as possible. I think those three things I would really love to see.
My dream for water is to find, I would say, new technologies with us which can minimize the amount of water, especially for curing. That's why we do a lot of research in our institute. It means how to find new techniques with us which can require the minimum amount of water for the processing and for the curing. I would say use much less concrete because concrete consumes a lot of water, for the curing especially. And even if you want to have wastewater for the curing, you still need a lot of water for the mixing of concrete. And as block will consume also some water, but they will consume less than concrete. And also that constructors and architects on their sites in Auroville should be more aware of the energy and the water use on their site and then convey this to the workers.
And what is still abri today, I see it as develop a kind of a center of excellence, you know, where people, because you find plumbers, but poor guys, very often they had no studies, they have not learned their skill, you know, they have not, and so the idea was to develop that, and that was the first Auroville water service. It was developing skills, you know. If we keep going in this mode, economic mode, you know, which is exactly the same like outside, even worse sometimes. And where sharing is sometimes an event. Wow, they have shared that thing. When it should be a way of life, you know. The main thing I would say is it's high time to review what is your set of values, what you have in your hands, what you have in your heart, above all, to see if you are well equipped yourself to face all these challenges that are coming. I'm very happy to see that a lot of people of these new generations are coming up and taking the responsibilities themselves. It's also our responsibility to pass the buck, you know, to give the young generations, share your knowledge, share all your, even your skills, you know, whatever you can share it back.
I would love to see more action being taken, and I reflect this back on my own life. Like, I've been talking about drip irrigation in my garden for like 2 years, and I haven't gone out and bought those pipes and set it up. But this is where I would love the action to move from kind of thinking about this issue to actually doing it before we get to the crisis. Yeah, before we don't have water anymore. In terms of opportunities, I think education is massive in the space of water. And in Auroville, what we have is really many unique educational approaches. And with those unique educational approaches and the scale we have in Auroville, we can go into classrooms and test if something works. And most importantly, we can get the input from children and the teachers. So we can tweak an education experience and design it, tweak it, and test it here in Auroville very easily. And I think that's something I would love to see happening with water, so that's a massive opportunity that we have here. Another thing that I think we have a lot, and an opportunity here that we think we have a lot, is human capital. We have a lot of expertise, we have a lot of knowledge, and it's hard to bring everyone in Auroville together, working together, but I think it's a massive opportunity that we should be looking at more, and that's why I love the project, the work that you guys are all doing. The nice intervention point of children, and this is children 6 to 15, so grade 1 to about grade 9, is that they're somehow connected to the environment to a much larger degree than we are. And that connection kind of leaves after 15, I think. And when you have that connection, what we see in the classrooms is they're actually pulling environmental education towards themselves. So they're more curious. They want to learn about it. They want to protect the cow from the plastic bag, and they want to protect the turtle from the straw. What we've seen there is we can go into a classroom and test materials, and they immediately talk to their parents about it. So we get a lot of kind of feedback from parents who say, I can't buy Lay's anymore. I have to, make orange juice for my kid because they don't want Tetra Packs. What's really interesting there is the dynamic of children talking to their parents seems to be a positive interaction that leads to behavioral change faster than adults talking to adults. And so we've used that kind of route to bring change home. And I think there's where education can be action-oriented, where it's small steps that anyone can implement.
Auroville has this incredible resources of conflict resolution resources, and I feel that they need to be utilized in the water context. And I think that takes, some movement from the groups themselves to come forward and say, look, we're not getting along, we need this extra help. And I would like to see that step taken. Also, back to the responsibility of the groups themselves, with regard to diversity, I think it's really important that those groups, I'm in some of those groups, look at the makeup of the group and perhaps hold up a mirror and see perhaps how we can be more inclusive and then work toward those aims. I see these little buds, from the water users associations. People can get involved on that level. Even for community participation, even understanding your water bills, where, like if you're getting water bills, because some people don't get water bills, but how is your water, how much water are you using per month? How is it billed? Trying to understand these really basic things and then starting to talk to community members about that, I think that's really important. I think those are real opportunities to discover that. Discover your own water first, and then start to understand also sort of who the players are in Auroville around the groups, because I think that I encounter oftentimes a lot of confusion around those groups. What does Portus Water do? What does Auroville Water Service do? What does the water group do? What is L'Avenir doing with water? the community starts to ask those questions, clarity also comes in the groups, you know, because they have to answer those questions, which is important. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing at my own job because, you know, like I'm trying to do it, but it needs a groundswell. It needs beauty and celebration. It doesn't need fear and scarcity and these, you know, terms. It needs abundance, you know. I think it needs to be perceived in that way.
There is this new wastewater system plant which is done near the residential zone. We cannot use this water directly in a tanker, for example. There are no system organized yet, from what I know, where we could send a tanker, take a pump, fill the tanker and go on the site to cure whatever you want with it. And this is a pity because, for example, for the road service, they use a lot of water sometimes to dig some holes here and there by hand. Or sometimes they put water on the road for limiting the dust or to stabilize the road. And this could be wastewater. And this is the first step that I would say that the water group should deal with. How to create a simple system that you just a phone call, I need one tanker or two, I can have it tomorrow. And then you have to find a way to store it on your site and then use this water for curing, for example. Because I knew that I did not consume much water, but I wanted to know how much I consume per day. Then, just a simple thing, I just disconnected my wastewater pipe from the sink, connect it into a bucket that I fill every day. Then every day I empty it on the plants. That means not totally wasted. The rest of the toilet goes into the wastewater system, which is recycled. But then noting down every consumption that I used. And since I started that 8 months ago, I reduced by 10 liters. That means the more you are aware of what you are doing, the less you consume and the less you waste, in fact. And I know that saving 10 liters of water per day for me is nothing compared to 1 kilo of rice consuming 1,400 liters of water to be grown. But if everybody has this kind of self-awareness and to try to convey the message to everybody, this can have a multiplying effect, maybe.
Palmera Aura Brindavanla அவர் யோர்கன் வந்து நீர்நிலைகளை நம்ம வற்றாமல் பார்த்துக்கிட்டா தான் நம்ம பூமிக்கடியில் இருக்கிற நீரை நம்ம சரியான முறையில் கண்டுபிடிச்சி பயன்படுத்தினா தான் வருங்காலம் வாழ முடியும். இன்றைக்கும் பயன், வருங்காலத்துக்கும் பயன். அவர் நிறைய நீர்நிலைகள் பற்றி ஒரு ஆய்வும் செய்து பல இடங்களில் பணிகளும் செய்தார். அதே மாதிரி ஹார்வெஸ்ட் அவங்களும் இந்த கிராம மக்களோடு சேர்ந்து தண்ணீரை பற்றிய விழிப்புணர்வு படங்கள், பல நல்ல நிகழ்ச்சிகள், செமினார் எல்லாம் நிறையா போட்டாங்க. அதில் சில இதில் நான் கலந்துட்டுருக்கேன். அதனால் எனக்கு வந்து அவங்களுடைய பணியில் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நிறைவு. ஏன்னா நான் அப்போ தனியாக இதெல்லாம் பார்த்துட்டு இருந்தேனே தவிர என்னால் இறங்கி களத்தில் இறங்கி பணி செய்வதற்கான சூழ்நிலை வாய்ப்பு எனக்கு கிடைக்கல. ஆனால் இந்த 2 நிறுவனங்களுமே தொடர்ந்து நல்ல பணிகள் செய்தாங்க. அதனால் அந்த சேலஞ்சஸை எடுத்து அதுக்கான விடையும் கண்டு நல்ல பலனையும் கொண்டு வரதுக்கு நம்ம ஆரோவில் நிறுவனங்களும் நிறையா உறுதுணையாக இருக்காங்க. அப்போ அவங்களோட கிராம தலைவர்கள், பஞ்சாயத்தார்கள், அப்புறம் கிராம செயல்வழி குழு, வில்லேஜ் ஆக்ஷன், அவங்களும் இணைஞ்சி வேலை செய்யறதுனால கிராமங்களில் ஒரு பொதுவான அவேர்னஸ், பொதுவான விழிப்புணர்வு கொண்டு வர முடிஞ்சது. ஆனால் குறிப்பாக தண்ணீருக்கு அப்படின்னு நாம் இன்னும் நிறைய செய்ய வேண்டியிருக்கு.
It often becomes very discouraging when you see multiple studies up on the wall that are not, so many studies have been done without any implementation. So the implementation question is key. If a water vision is presented, I would like to put it beautifully everywhere in terms of, in all of the offices that work on water, right? I want it hanging so that we can reference it, because that for me will be our point of unity, so that when we sit in a room and we're frustrated by our, or butting heads by our lack of, by our differences in perhaps method or technique to find a solution, we can refer back to sort of our point of unity. Number 2 is, I feel that the water players, the people who are really involved in water right now, should perhaps be called together and asked to reflect on the vision. And this would need to be a facilitated meeting because there are a lot of challenges that go back many years, and it would need to be a safe space in my feeling. And then have them reflect back on what work they can do. In addition, I would love to see a groundswell of people who are not necessarily involved in water, who want to become active in this, who want to translate the vision into steps forward. And so like fresh voices, fresh energy, working ideally in a collaborative way with the water players, but who knows how that might manifest.
ஒரு மாபெரும் மாஸ்டர் பிளான் திட்டம் வச்சுக்கணும். அதுக்கு நம்ம நிறைய வேலை செய்ய வேண்டியிருக்கு. மக்களுடைய அபிமானத்தை பெறணும். ஆரோவில்ல இருக்கிறவங்களே முதல்ல ஒன்றுபடணும். அப்புறம் ஆரோவில்ல உதிரியாக வேலை செய்திருக்கிற இந்த சின்ன சின்ன தன்னார்வ தொண்டு நிறுவனங்கள்லாம் ஒன்று சேரணும். எல்லாரையும் ஒன்று சேர்த்து இன்னும் சேர்ந்து வேலை செய்யலாமா வேண்டாமான்னு வந்து காத்துட்ருக்கிற புதியவர்கள் நிறைய ஆற்றலோடு இருக்காங்க. அந்த இளைஞர்கள் எல்லாம் ஒன்று சேர்த்து நாம் ஒரு பெரிய மகா பஞ்சாயத்துக்கான ஒரு திட்ட வரைவு செய்து நாம் தண்ணீர் பாதுகாப்பு குழுக்கள், தண்ணீர் வளர்ச்சி குழுக்கள் இதெல்லாம் செய்கிற பொழுது ஆரோவிலும் நல்லாயிருக்கும், சுற்றி இருக்கிற கிராமங்களும் நல்லாயிருக்கும். அப்போ நம்ம உலகத்துக்கே ஒரு முன்மாதிரியாக இருப்போம் அப்படின்றது தான் என்னுடைய ஆரோவில் கனவு.
We don't even govern ourselves using the values that were indicated to us by Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I mean, they created that place. They indicated a certain way. They did not give any dogma, any nothing. But they indicated, they gave quite a fair amount of indication. I mean, just follow that. That's simple. And see what it does to you, First, stop thinking that money will solve anything. Anything. Money is just a way to realize something. But it's not a solution. Money itself is not a solution. So don't run for it. If you need it, if it's a valid request, it comes. One thing also, one key point is about this governance thing. I'm not convinced at all that democracy is the way to go for Auroville issues. We have to give an authority that manages water and only water. If you want to build a ship, do not gather your men and women to give them orders, to explain each detail, to tell them where to find anything. If you want to build a ship, give birth in the heart of your men and women to the desire of the sea.
I would say the different groups of Auroville, knowing l'avenir, and all the finance groups should be try to help to really put guidelines and impose the use of wastewater and be more aware of the use of water. It should come from all levels, from the bottom to the top. It means from people getting more and more awareness and care about water, more knowledge about water. People could just spend some time on the website of the water group. They have a lot of information in it. And this is, for me, the main key of the things. We have to work together, and whatever has been decided by people who know well what to do, and who can propose a solution for what we have to do.
You need to find me a committed team of people that want to work on a water education project. I think that would be really, really cool. If we can mobilize a team of 6 or 7 people who want to work full time for 2 years at least on developing, testing and sharing a curriculum on water, that would be incredible. I think doing more of the work you're doing right now with bringing people together, starting up the discussion, bringing water into our conversation, that would be great. And I think another thing is how do we transition from talking about an issue into acting? And we do that before we get to that crisis moment. We have like this unique diversity. And the flip side of that is that it's impossible to work together with people. So I think the more people you get invested in that vision, who actually participate in making that vision, but not only making that vision, but actually take out a task to do it. That's crucial. So I think it's to get a blend of those people, the people who have the vision and have the philosophy and who like talking about the issue, but also a group of people who actually can carry out this vision, who are passionate about it. And I would say also to break it down into small tasks that have a name behind it and a date.
Put your energy at the service of Auroville and at the service of around Auroville, the bioregion, these things. That's what is important. Give back freedom to water. Don't use water as a power tool. Don't use water as a way to enrich yourself. Don't use water for this kind of thing. Water is just a human need. Without water, who I am?
I would say that we should start action now. So we should move from that ideas and philosophy stage to what can we do today practically and inspire that type of action. So start with these small steps to conserve our water resource, to reduce wastage, and to recycle it. I'd say we should focus on education. And the third thing, I think, is getting people together. So finding ways to bring Aurovillians together and to work together.
I feel that we need to emphasize our human connection to this beautiful, just the beauty of water and the abundance of water. We need to emphasize that connection. We need to have a diverse participation in the governance aspect of water, where everyone feels that their voice is it has an impact. And we need to increase the harmony somehow of the water players and get over all of our past baggage and really move forward, because you know it, we're facing an extremely critical situation, and we don't have any time left to bicker.
Key message: I would invite people to search online, to have more and more, to get more and more information on how much water is used here or there, from where it's coming. Of course, we know that the water comes from the sky, but how much water we have in the water table. Get information as much as they can to be aware of what's happening with water.
அவங்க வீடு, அவங்க குடும்பம், அவங்க ஊர் பெருமையை முதல்ல கற்றுக் கொடுக்கணும். அதுக்கான வாய்ப்பை ஏற்படுத்தி கொடுத்தாதான் அவன் உலகத்தை நல்ல கண்ணோட்டத்தோடு பார்க்க முடியும். ஒவ்வொரு பள்ளிக்கூடத்துலேயும் ரெயின் ரெயின் கோவே, இந்த குழந்தைங்க வாயை திறக்கிறப்பவே பாடுற பாட்டு ரெயின் ரெயின் கோவேன்னா எங்கேருந்து மழை வரும், எங்கே பூமியில் தண்ணி இருக்கும்? அதுக்கு பதிலாக தங்கப்பாவுடைய பாட்டு பாடணும், மழையே மழையே வா வா மண்ணில் விளையாடவா. அப்போது மழை வேணும். நம்ம மாரியம்மாவெல்லாம் சுற்றி வச்சுக்கிட்டு மழையே போன்னு. அப்போ நம்மளுடைய நாகரிக போக்கே நம்ம மாற்றிட்டோம். ஒரு இமிட்டேஷன், போலித்தனம் வந்துடுச்சு. அதுக்கு பதிலாக மெய்யாகவே அந்த குழந்தைகள் உள்ளத்திலையும் தண்ணீரை பற்றிய நல்ல விதைகளை ஊன்றணும். அதனால் நம்முடைய தமிழருடைய நீர் மேலாண்மையை நம்ம பிள்ளைகளுக்கு சொல்லித்தரணும். சேர்ந்து நிறைய பேர் வேலை செய்கிறோம், இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் இணைஞ்சு வேலை செய்தால் அந்த பயன் போய் கிடைக்கும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறேன். தண்ணீர் பயன்பாடு பற்றி நிறைய நாம் கல்வி கருவூலங்கள் செய்யணும். அது